the effect of these 15-minute neighbourhoods, soon to become digital ID facial recognition zones. We are watching the beginnings of the Chinification of Europe in preparation of the social credit system. Please raise your hands if you are aware that we live under what is called the British Constitution. As I understand it, under constitutional law, it is we, that is you and me, the ordinary folk, the corner shop owner, the truck driver, the nurse, the doctor. It is we, the common people, who wield the power and authority. Is that not true? Am I wrong? No, I am not. Okay, so the officials in City Council have to do what we the people want. We the people are not slaves to these officials, and they are not our masters. Is that correct, or am I wrong? The MP, Andrew Bridgen, last month said that the politicians work for us, not the other way round. He said that as he was kicked out of government by the corrupt politicians who have hijacked our government buildings. I have no doubt that more than 50% of these politicians are secretly in favour of the World Economic Forum and their plans to enslave us in their digital nightmare. Starting with their digital ID system, which will give them total control over your bank accounts and whether or not you can access your money. Providing you are a good slave and allow yourself to be experimented on with their Frankenstein injections, I'm sure your money will be okay. I have no doubt about that. But if you dare try to stand up for your fundamental rights and freedoms, you will be punished. I have no doubt about that either. And the Oxford City officials are building this prison for themselves. How dumb is that? It's laughable that this idea will cut down on pollution. If, for example, you work a couple of zones away, you will now be expected to go out of town to a ring road, drive round the ring road and then come back into town. So how can it possibly be about pollution? Rather than cutting across the short way, a person now has to spend twice as much money on fuel and drive the long way round the city and cause twice as much pollution. And that will have a big negative impact on my carbon footprint tracker. So if I want to have good carbon score, it will mean stay home, don't go anywhere. You can see where this is heading, can't you? In a recent poll, it was claimed that 2/3 of the British people thought our government was corrupt. I think it's way more than 2/3. The greedy people have stolen our democracy and are now calling themselves politicians. And they have turned our democracy and our constitution into a tyranny. So what now? Some people ask me, how would you suggest we solve the problems of the world? And I ask, what problems? And they come out with a long list of things from homelessness to starvation to wars to energy crisis. And I have to stop them and say, look, the world has only got one single problem. If you deal with this one problem, all others will vanish. And they ask me, so what is it? And I tell them, you must deal with the greedy people. These greedy people are evil and are the one single cause of all the suffering on planet Earth. And until you deal with these evil, greedy people, things can and will only get much worse. The imposter, currently squatting in number 10, recently said that transparency was most important. And yet when asked about his £500 million investment in Moderna vaccines, he declined to answer. So clearly we live in a tyranny. It's very simple really. In a democracy, the people know everything about the government. But Rishi Sunak has pointed out to us that it doesn't work like that anymore. The transparency he talks about is one of tyranny where they, the greedy people, know everything about us, but we know little about them. The greedy people have amassed personal fortunes which, because they are the greedy people, they keep to themselves. They have stolen the financial resources of the world from all the people to themselves. In my world, my utopia, the leader would be a champion of love and peace and would be hailed as a king, not for the type of blood in his body, but for what he did for the people of his country, i.e. increasing the wealth and quality of life and keeping peace with other nations. For us, the normies, the common folk, we the people, they would be our champions. At the World Economic Forum are quite openly calling us, we, the people, useless eaters and a waste of resources, adding they do not need the vast majority of us. They don't need us. Well, quite honestly, I think the whole of humanity would be much happier and much better off without them crazy lunatics. We don't need them, and we don't want them. As long as Klaus Schwab is free, no one is safe. there are the foolish people. These are the ones who are helping to build their own prison and the prisons that their children will have to spend their whole lives within, being watched as digital slaves and tracked 24 hours, every second of their life where privacy will soon become incomprehensible. I'm speaking about those well-paid officials at Oxford City Council who think they have the right to force their madness on the rest of us. And then there's the destruction of local small businesses. Businesses that depend on the free flow of traffic and the freedom of the people to move around and go about their lives freely as they choose, in order for that small business to survive. I could talk about the ignorance of these investors in the creation of these prison systems. Large corporations such as Lloyd's Bank and organisations who are acting in shameful and ungodly ways through ignorance and through corruption. Organisations such as the Church of England, who I am sure would have no part in this if they knew where it was all leading. Let's say my friend lives in Zone 3 and I'm in Zone 1. If, for example, I went to my friend's house in Zone 3, my parents normally come and pick me up in their car. It only takes 10 minutes. So does that mean that they would have to go round the ring road and back into town again? If my mum or dad had to drive round the ring road, it would take 30 minutes, causing much more pollution and leaving a much bigger carbon footprint. They will say, you can walk home. Would that be safe for me to walk home? Me as a 12-year-old walking home in the dark alone. Is that really going to be safe? Then they will say, oh, don't worry about that. We've already thought of that. You'll be safe. We will have 1,000 cameras on the streets following you and tracking you all the way home. What? Are you serious? Do you really think I want to be watched every second of the day? Are you serious? Thousands of cameras tracking my every move until I get home. And also, for your information, I still wouldn't feel safe. No amount of cameras is going to stop someone who wants to attack me. I want to be safe, but not to the extent that I am prepared to give up my freedom and my privacy to have it. As a 12-year-old, I am really concerned about my future. And to Klaus Schwab, I say this. How dare you! How dare you steal my childhood and my future, and the future of all children by enslaving us in your crazy digital surveillance prison. We all know where this is leading, and by the way, Klaus, just for information, I still think you're a complete nutcase. How dare you? Who do you think you are? To me, you are no different from a villain in a James Bond movie, attempting to hold the world hostage in your crazy transhumanist dystopia. And for what? To make more money? More profit? Is there truly any amount of wealth that will satisfy your greed? So people, listen. Make no mistake. These are the first steps of a dystopian reality called 15-minute neighborhoods. From a small seed, a huge tree can grow. Do you know yesterday the temperature was 7 degrees, but today it is 12 degrees. The greedy people are claiming that the zones are to do with climate change. Over the last few decades, the greedy people have managed to convince the people of the world that if the temperature goes up by 1 single degree, 1 degree, that all life will become extinct. How dumb have you got to be to believe that? That's a story created by fake scientists and the greedy people, and there is not a shred of truth in any of it. Recycling our waste is a good idea to save on resources and materials and to cut down on waste, but it has absolutely nothing to do with saving the planet. Climate change is being used to control us, to nudge us in the direction the greedy people want us to go. In the meantime, I would advise the residents of Oxford demand an independent investigation into how the city officials got the figures, claiming that most people were in favour of these infringements on your rights to travel freely. You must demand an investigation. Our government has been hijacked by greedy and selfish imposters posing as politicians. They believe they are better than us and masters over us. And until this problem is effectively dealt with, the tyranny will continue. Thank you.